And maybe that's exactly what's been happening to you. Have you ever felt like you love more than you should? Have you found yourself waiting for messages that never come, feeding off crumbs of attention as if they were enough? Why does it seem like you always give too much and receive too little? Maybe you're not really looking for love. Maybe you're looking for yourself in the eyes of someone who was never going to return your gaze. In this video, you'll understand why this keeps happening and why what you're missing was never outside of you. It was always an inner absence waiting to be seen. Stay with me until the end. Sometimes what you need isn't another answer, but a mirror that finally shows you who you've always been. This might be the moment when you stop abandoning yourself and finally begin to return home. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But it's not only anger that reveals truth. What you admire in others can also be a reflection of what you've lost within yourself. Maybe you weren't just in love with someone. Maybe you were in love with the version of yourself you believed you could become beside that person. That's why it hurts so much. It wasn't only their absence that wounded you. It was your own absence. You tried everything. You adapted. You gave in. You gave too much, hoping it would finally be enough. But it never was. And once again, you were left in the silence of another failed attempt, not understanding why you always end up feeling not enough. The truth is, what you're seeking in others is often something that belongs to you, something that was silenced, forgotten, or rejected long ago. And now it returns, not as memory, but as longing. You're not just looking to be loved. You're looking to reconnect, to touch the part of yourself that was lost while trying to please, to fit in, to be chosen. In this video, we're going to face that pain with honesty. And maybe you'll discover that the emptiness you feel was never really about someone else. It was the absence of yourself. Have you ever wondered why you feel so drawn to certain people? Sometimes it's like something in them pulls you closer. A look, a way of speaking, a sense of calm, confidence, or strength you don't feel in yourself. And that's where the quiet process of projection begins. In Jungian psychology, projection is a mechanism of the unconscious. Parts of ourselves that we haven't integrated because they were repressed, denied, or forgotten get placed onto others as if they belong to them. It's like looking at someone and seeing something far greater than what's really there. When you admire someone too much, when you idealize them, when it feels like only by their side you'll be complete, what's really happening is reflection. You're seeing in them a part of yourself that you haven't yet recognized as your own. Projection is a mirror, but it's a distorted one because what we see in the other also belongs to us. We've just lost direct access to it. So we search for it outside, and it's not rational. It's visceral. You feel like you need that person, like they complete you. But in truth, they're only activating something that was already inside you, something you lost touch with. Jung once wrote, "We become neurotic when we try to avoid the legitimate suffering of the soul." And maybe the deepest pain of all is this: spending a lifetime chasing in others what was taken from you when you were too young to understand. You chase affection, validation, comfort. But deep down, what's crying out to be recognized is your own forgotten light. Sometimes it's your brilliance that you project onto others, your freedom, your courage, your depth. And without realizing it, you become emotionally dependent on someone who, in your eyes, carries everything you wish you could be. But here's a hard truth. What you're seeking in others will never truly fill you because it doesn't belong to them. It's yours. And it can only be recovered when you begin to look within, even if it hurts. Projection is not love. It's an unconscious attempt to reunite with yourself. It's the psyche trying to return what was exiled long ago. And until you welcome that part of yourself back, it will keep showing up in the wrong people, in painful relationships, in empty spaces that no one else can fill. That's why it hurts so deeply, because it was never really about losing someone else. It's always been about losing yourself. Maybe you learned early on to search in others for what you never received. Maybe you grew up feeling like you had to do more to be worthy of love. Be calmer, more obedient, stronger, happier, more perfect. And even then, it never seemed to be enough. As children, we don't understand emotional absence, but we feel it. And to survive, the soul adapts. It creates masks, swallows tears, shapes itself to the environment, learns to please to avoid rejection. That's when a part of us starts to disconnect. The spontaneous part, the one that expresses how it feels, the one that allows itself to fail, to desire freely, that part gets silenced and over time, forgotten. But forgetting is not healing. It's just hiding. That wounded part is still there, waiting to be seen. And since you no longer recognize it, you begin searching for it in others. Maybe you find yourself drawn to people who make you relive the same emptiness. People who are emotionally unavailable, who ignore you, who make you fight for the bare minimum. Why does that happen? Because your unconscious is trying to resolve something left unfinished. You don't repeat the pain by choice, but by programming. And without awareness, the past becomes a cycle. You keep ending up in the same place with different people. Jung said that what is not made conscious returns as fate. And that applies to your relationships, your way of loving, your deepest wounds. Maybe you felt you had to be perfect to avoid being left behind, or that you had to save others to be noticed, or that being ignored was normal because that's what home felt like. So you grew up believing that love is something earned through effort, through pain, through sacrifice, but love that must be endlessly earned stops being love and becomes a test of your worth, a test of your existence. And when you give everything to someone and still feel empty, it's because you're trying to recover in the present what froze in the past. That's the root. It's not weakness. It's a deeply human emotional pattern. The emptiness you feel today didn't start with your last heartbreak. It began long ago when you first believed you weren't enough just as you were. And now, without realizing it, you keep trying to prove the opposite, not to them, but to yourself. Have you noticed how some feelings always seem to come back? You heal, rebuild yourself, promise not to fall again, but all it takes is a gesture, a silence, an absence, and everything collapses. It's as if life places you in the same spot again, the same scene, the same pain. This isn't coincidence, and it's not punishment. It's symbolic repetition. It's your unconscious trying to show you something you haven't yet had the courage to face. Pain repeats itself because it still has something to say, and it won't leave until it's been heard. Fully, gently, honestly. Maybe you think you're just bad at choosing people, that you're unlucky in love. But what if it's not you choosing the pain? What if the pain is choosing you? What if this cycle isn't here to break you, but to wake you? Jung said that the soul has an innate drive toward wholeness, and pain is one of the instruments of that drive. It points to the places where something was broken, where love didn't reach, where your awareness has yet to go. You feel this pain not because you're weak or too dependent. You feel it because you're trying to love with a heart that still has holes. And those holes won't be filled with more effort, more giving, more waiting. They only begin to close when you stop running from the pain and start listening to what it's revealing. Recurring pain has a purpose. It's trying to show you who you can no longer keep pretending to be. It wants to return what was lost, to free you from the role you had to play in order to survive. But for that to happen, you have to stop fighting it. Stop covering the emptiness with noise, with urgency, with someone else. You need to stay, maybe for the first time, with yourself, and ask with full honesty, what am I still trying to prove? Who am I still trying to save? What is missing from me that only I can give? That's when pain reveals its true purpose. It didn't come to destroy you. It came to rebuild you, because pain is not the end. It's the path, the sign that something within you is finally ready to be seen with maturity, with compassion, with courage, and maybe, just maybe, this pain is teaching you slowly to come back home, back to yourself. Maybe you recognize yourself in someone who always falls for emotionally unavailable people. They call it passion, but deep down, it's fear. Fear of being truly loved, because real closeness exposes all the insecurities they tried to bury. They learned early on that too much presence could hurt, So they got used to longing for what stays just out of reach. Healing began the day they stopped. Stopped running from the emptiness. Stopped chasing after what doesn't stay. And for the first time, chose to stay with themselves. Or maybe you're the one who's always trying to save others. You give, you listen, you carry pain that isn't yours. You call it empathy, but inside, you're exhausted. Because somewhere along the way, you learned that being needed was the only way to feel loved. You measured your worth by how much you could endure. But healing began the day you realized you didn't have to disappear to be accepted. That real love never asks you to abandon yourself. Some people always sabotage what could have worked. They create distance, confusion, conflict. They're afraid to open up, afraid to lose, afraid to get hurt. So they destroy it before it has the chance to become real. Jung once said, "The most important encounters have already been arranged by the souls before the bodies meet." But sometimes the soul arranges those meetings to show you where you're still wounded, and avoiding them is just delaying the healing. Maybe you don't see yourself in just one of these stories. Maybe you carry pieces of all of them. The one who waits too much, the one who gives too much, the one who runs when it gets too real. It doesn't matter what role you've played. What matters is that you recognize yourself. Because when you observe your patterns with honesty, without shame, something inside you begins to shift. Pain stops feeling like a punishment and starts becoming a signal, a call to change direction, to stop repeating, to choose something different, and maybe that choice starts right now. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you is already shifting. Maybe you've recognized a pattern, a wound, an absence you never had the words to name. Maybe now you're feeling what you've always tried to avoid, the raw truth of what's missing, and the urgency to come back to yourself. But healing isn't about fixing. It's about remembering. Remembering who you were before you had to adapt. Before you silenced yourself to fit in. Before you believed you had to earn love. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And it all starts with courage. The courage to stop running. To stop seeking in others what can only be reclaimed within. The wounded part of you, the one that never feels like enough, that begs for attention, that overgives to feel worthy, doesn't want advice. It wants tenderness. It wants to be seen without judgment. It wants to be heard without being rushed. So begin slowly. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to be willing to listen. Listen to what your pain is trying to say, not so you can drown in it, but so you can move through it. It's trying to show you where something was lost, and where something new can begin. Write it down. Get a notebook that's just yours. Write as if you're speaking to the child you once were. Tell them everything you never got to say. Apologize for ignoring their needs. And let them know, I'm here now, fully, and I'm not going anywhere. Sit in silence, not the silence that suppresses, the silence that welcomes. Close your eyes. Breathe. Place your hands over your heart. Feel your body, and whisper to yourself, I'm here. I will not abandon you again. Pay attention to your impulses. Notice when you try too hard to please, when you hold back what you really feel, when you give more to others than you give to yourself. These are not failures. They are invitations. Each one is a chance to act differently, to choose yourself. And when the pain comes, because it will, breathe. Don't silence it. Don't try to fix it right away. Stay with it as you would stay with someone you deeply love. Just be there. That's the space where reintegration happens, where your soul starts returning to the places it was once torn away from, where you stop being just a fragment and begin becoming whole again. Jung called this individuation. It's when you stop living by the wounds, expectations, and roles others gave you, and start living by what is truly yours. And no, it won't be a perfect path. There will be setbacks, fear, confusion, but there will also be clarity. And little by little, a peace that doesn't depend on anyone but you. you'll begin to realize you no longer need to empty yourself to be loved. You no longer have to chase after people who can't see your worth. Because your worth isn't out there. It's here, in everything you've survived, in everything you still are, even after being broken. Healing doesn't erase the past, but it gives you back to yourself. And in the end, that's what you've always wanted, to return home and find yourself there. At the beginning of this video, I ask you why you keep trying so hard to be seen, and maybe now you understand. It was never really about the other person. It was always about you, waiting for yourself, hoping you would finally return. And maybe that's the deepest truth within all this pain. It was always about love, but the kind of love no one ever taught you to offer, the love of self. You spent so much time giving, waiting, trying to prove you were worth staying for. But the presence you needed most wasn't someone else's. It was your own. It's time to return to yourself, to gather every piece you left behind in the relationships that hurt you, in the masks you wore, in the silences you swallowed just to keep the peace. And now you know there is wholeness waiting for you, even in what once felt like pain. There is strength that comes when you stop running. There is a quiet kind of freedom that begins the moment you say, "Enough. I choose to come home to myself." If this message touched something deep within you, leave a comment below as a personal ritual of return. I choose to come back to myself. Write it like a promise, like a turning point, like a line you're no longer willing to cross. And if you felt this video mattered, don't stop here. There's another step waiting for you. Watch the next video. It may reveal even more of what's ready to awaken in you. If you'd like to support this work and continue receiving more reflections like this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It's a small gesture, but it helps this message reach others who also need to come back to themselves. The journey home doesn't end here. It's only just beginning. The love you've been searching for begins the moment you choose to stop abandoning yourself.